most likely, if I want to start a car wash, I'll find another car wash.
Yes.
If I want to start my own supermarket now, I'll find the others I mentioned and Jaza too now. You know, now being you've stepped into the space.
Yes. Absolutely. And there's one thing we actually say in retail, copy shamelessly. When you're actually also doing your business, at times you'll have to collide next to another person.
What perhaps the story behind, you know, wanting to be in more places effectively, you know. Mm-hmm.
If a store does not work, shut it down.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of Make Money, the podcast. And on this episode, it's a continuation from our last around entrepreneurship. And today, we present a lesson that we present to you a lesson, or lessons that you can pick up from people who've actually had the shift from 9 to 5 into business, and they are running their own successful businesses. And with that context, I'm happy to present my guest for this week, and this is Mr. Willy Kimani. And just before I let you introduce yourself, it's good to set a context. Your last 9 to 5 was Naivas. You know, you are the chief commercial officer. Before that, you've served in various positions in other retailers. That's Uchumi, and also we've had Tuskys on board. And before we come straight into the conversation, I think we last saw you at Naivas.
Yep.
And from there you went ahead and founded Jaza Retail, you know, a retailer.
Yeah.
Caught us, most of us, by surprise. Most of us who are used to you, you know, being you know, the point person at Naivas.
Yeah.
What explained that change, even as you make an introduction for yourself here?
Yeah, so things change and times change. And as a retailer, one of the key things you do is you quickly travel. You go around the world and you keep on looking at scope and talking to suppliers and customers. And before long, you start noticing that there are actually gaps that are actually existing in the market.
Mm-hmm.
And the gap that was existing in the market that you actually found was, unlike other developed markets, Kenya as a developing market had this big gap between what you call modern trade and general trade. So the general trade will be the kiosks and the wholesalers and, you know, where you don't even have that luxury of pushing a trolley. And then, of course, now on the other apex, you have the proper modern trade, where you had very big, nice, well done, lovely, beautiful food markets and supermarkets done and all that. There was something missing in between here. And the in between will actually be something that has the price of a wholesaler, but at the same time has at least some essence of a supermarket. So meaning you're able to buy prices cheaper.
Yeah.
Give up some of those beautiful things like the many colors, the beautiful lights and stuff like that, and just create a normal everyday supermarket and all that, and a place where people can actually shop and say, hey, guess what, I am comfortable going into here, the prices are actually making sense to me. And that's what we actually ended up having. Yes.
Yeah. And the other question I ask, a lot of times we tend to be slaves of our own mastery. You know, you've been a retailer, successful one at that. You've mostly operated beforehand at operations level, so you are familiar with these operations. Was it almost destined that if you were to start a business, it would be a retail business?
Funny enough,
given your experience.
It's funny enough, by the way, you say that. I had actually said my last posting was going to be Naivas. Completely. I was 100% sure I was never going to open up, and also the kind of stress mode that you'll actually see, and I was clear I'm going to be a butcher.
Yeah.
I had a brand called Butcher and Sauce.
Yeah.
I was gonna do. I love aged beef, and I love I love playing around with meat and all that. I love meat and all that. And I was so sure I was going to go that and do a big ranch and everything, and that was going to be my, what I can actually call my everyday kind of path towards my future.
Yeah.
But then I saw this particular gap, and it was very, 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 very clear, and more so when I actually visited Turkey.
Yeah.
And that was actually during my 40th birthday.
Yeah.
And during that time, together with some of my friends, when we were actually there, and we had actually just done a small golfing trip there, we actually noticed, hey, guess what? No. This. No, these shops, the way they look like here, we don't have. But there's Carrefour there. Then there's these are big macros here.
Yeah.
But wait a minute, let's study. Okay, which is the biggest supermarket here? Oh, Beam. Beam is actually bigger. What is the second? Oh, okay. What will be the future of general trade? What will be the future of this? And then that's when we actually just started fermenting. Wait a minute. The whole thing of we had been looking at, there is definitely a gap, because everybody is just thinking big stores, 15 to 20,000, 10,000 max, but nobody was actually coming up with a proper format that can actually be from 1,500 square foot to around 4,000, 5,000 square foot.
Yeah.
And that's where I actually just said, hey, bingo, this is actually going to be what we actually think we're going to be. And we are going to try out, and we started mapping ourselves out and going all crazy with business plans and trying to do some business modeling to actually just get what you could actually say, hey, this is the way forward. So I will say that together with going to UK where you see your Aldi and Lidl, at the same time we started when you're actually checking out and everything, we just start seeing the bodegas being done by Walmart in South America. So and then at the same time also the financials for South Africa came out. Pick n Pay owns another brand called Boxer. Boxer was profitable, Pick n Pay was not. For the first time ever. So why? There was that particular shift, and that shift mainly among all those guys was revolving around, one, the changing consumer trends, the younger guys, where now they have given up what you can actually call choice for value. So they're giving up saying, hey, you know what, may have to have this brand X. That I have to pack up my bread with Blue Band. Now I can actually use, why can't I use Prestige, by the way? You know, that question is a question that people are actually asking themselves. And then the question is, then if it's Prestige, it has the good quality, what price point? What is this value that Prestige is offering me? And that is actually what we started thinking. Okay, guess what? When you go to a restroom or and your evening, or you're going to a pub or something like that, and you go to the bathroom, you don't kind of get to choose the tissue that is there. But you can actually say, but you don't say this is the brand that has to be there for me, that I only use. No, I'm not going to go to the loo because it's not there. So the whole thing also starts coming and cementing and just saying, okay, wait a minute. So this is it. But what do people like? X, Y, Z. So do I have it at the right price? What brand? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that's the whole thing of how we came up with Jaza. And the whole Jaza element now was to pick the models. Not to say that that is exactly what was working in Turkey will work for us, but to pick the element of that, the elements of what we actually have here in Kenya, and then now come up with a new brand. Yes.
Yeah, and I think with that, at the same time, I think it's easier to say someone, someone who's worked for long as a doctor. The expectation is they will start, a private practice, a clinic, perhaps even near the hospital that they used to work at before. Coming to you, as much as there's always that you are likely to fall, closer to the tree. Ideally, you're an apple, you'll just fall closer to the tree. Does that experience also count? You've even you mentioned quite the big stores in UK. You mentioned Walmart and the likes, but you've already had enough experience. Tuskys was big in its heydays. So was Uchumi, and Naivas is now the market leader. Do you feel that experience still added to what you're doing now?
Absolutely. And it's actually added more into one thing. One, of course, category knowledge. Knowing that within a category, this is actually the entry product, standard product, premium product that I cannot miss. That knowledge actually really helped. Second was actually knowing the kind of partners to actually partner with, and just say, hey, you know what, if it's actually going to look for sites and all those other things, this makes more sense, this does not make more sense. Third, of course, and more important, was it's the same supplier for Prestige Kepha in Naivas and the same in Jaza. So and it's the same guy I was dealing with there who I'm also going to come and deal with. And that means I'm able to actually go there and actually have that proper candid talk. If it's going to look at tissue Hanan, I'm actually talking to the same guy called Said here and Said on the other side. Of course, when you knock that door, it's easier because they know you. They know your character. They know when you're actually discussing a serious business and all that. And that automatically helped a lot to actually put in together a quick way of actually doing it. So and again, the scope of doing basic things. A basic thing means this is how to do retail reporting. This is how to actually show the kind of people to actually hire. This is what. So that past experience absolutely helped. And it's that thing of, yes, you can actually know, for example, today it's the easiest thing to go and flip burgers, because anyway you can actually go YouTube it. But there's a guy who you'll never beat. There's a reason why there's some burgers sweeter than the others. And maybe the secret is the bun, not the butter, So I will actually say having worked within the particular industry really helped, because already you have your strong points, and now it's just an alteration of the main point that you actually have.
And I think the other question coming to it is, ideally for someone, if I'm to start a business around my neighborhood, maybe let's say a car wash. There are car washes I know that have been driving. I maybe I've gone there and I've had to wait in queue, to get my car washed, and the likes of that. Now, coming to your example with Jaza Retail, they're already the big boys, and you happen to have worked for them, or at least one of them. You have your Naivases, you have your Quick Mart, and they're the market leaders clearly, and everyone else is following them or following their lead. Coming up with Jaza now and realizing that you still have to take on the big boys. It's not you can't hide away. You can't bury your head in the sand and assume that you're not taking them on. How has that been? In terms
absolutely.
of pushing, challenging quite.
Absolutely.
The beast
Our first store, we opened our store in Buruburu, Mesora.
Yeah.
And the former Tuskys Mall had a very big banner saying Kafu coming soon, less than 400 meters. And the landlord actually asked me, "Are you sure, young man, that you're actually coming to open this store?" And these guys are bringing Kafu. Kafu is coming. And I was like, no, our model is different. There is a clear USP. Our unique selling point are clear. Is pricing, less choice, and we have a very easy node such that I know my milk is going to be 44 shillings. I am 100% sure Kafu is not going to do milk for 44 shillings. They can't. And my customers will love my milk for 44 shillings. It will be the best quality and those other things. I'll be able to have less of this. I'll be able to sell my dairy best at 59 shillings every day. I will not be going at one day I'm 59, the next I'm 65, or I clearly knew the game plan that we actually had. And guess what? That was our first store, was quite successful from the word go. And we also got quite a lot. And at that point it was even harsh because nobody knows what this Jaza is. People don't care who owns or who are the owners.
Or who are the owners behind or Willy was at Naivas as chief commercial officer.
You don't even have the platform to tell people that because you don't even have the capital to.
True.
So the whole idea was going into the market. And my former managing director, Mr. David Kimani, had actually told me one thing. Everything has to actually always look for its own space in the market. You go there, bulge out, look for your own space. You will create one. But make sure that you're not it's not like a me too affair. So just try copy. No. It's you have something quite unique that actually makes sense. The same thing happened, and it was to actually say when we actually went to Great Wall. Of course, there is a Food Plus just nearby. There is a Quick Mart next to it. There's a Kafu next to our Karen N shop, and we are just saying, hey, you know what? We are not going to really focus on that bit of what they're doing. What you're doing is going to create a whole node of a market that is specific to us, likes us, and knows exactly what you're doing.
And is it that the lesson for anyone trying to step into business, that you are likely find a similar business to the one you want to start, unless you are innovating from scratch, where you're bringing something we've never seen. Most likely, if I want to start a car wash, I'll find another car wash. If I want to start my own supermarket now, I'll find the others I mentioned and Jaza too now. Now being you've stepped into the space. Is it about standing on what you believe in and pushing for it? Because you'll always find a similar business.
Absolutely. And there's one thing we actually say in retail: copy shamelessly. Now, if I was going to, during my old days, I'm in Naivas, and I actually go into a Kafu, and clearly this poster seems to be working for the customer and those other things. You copy shamelessly. And the same thing. And that's why you'll actually notice most people will actually go like, oh, even Kafu started doing what Nani was doing, or even Naivas is doing, or even Quick Mart. The first moment when you did the food market, other guys also quickly were able to copy it up, and guess what, becomes a trend. So it's quite normal. As we sit right now here, I'm sure there are people thinking, oh, there will be another person trying to play within a whole Jaza segment and all that. But the more the merrier, I always have to say. The market is still very big. The market, the more we actually evolve, the more we actually start communicating. There are very many lessons that Kafu brought into this market. There are very many lessons that Nakumat left and actually initiated in this market. Same to Uchumi, same to Tuskys. The Naivas food market also, for example. All those things have a proper, there's always something that is unique that actually starts and triggers particularly into the market. But as you're going in there and you're actually starting, the question always comes in, which is a normal Kenyan problem. And you'll use your example of a car wash. So you get a car wash, it's actually working, and then you just come and set another car wash right there. So what you have just done, the cars have not increased because you have now created another
car wash. It's the
No,
same cars in the
same,
neighborhood.
so the
Same
guys now start cannibalizing.
Yeah.
So you're just cannibalizing on this guy.
Yeah.
Before long, another person comes in. Instead of maybe saying, hey, can I have done a car wash like this the way he has done it somewhere far off?
Yeah.
Or somewhere something else.
Yeah.
And so even as you set off your business and all that, it's always also nice to ask yourself, ultimately, what can be my end goal? Or rather, what can be my exit? For example, in Jaza, it's quite clear to say, hey, you know what? One day, I might be listing in the market.
Yeah.
And people might ask what other companies actually listed in the market. Or one day, a big boy might actually come, one of the big boys, and says, hey, you know what? Why don't we combine these businesses together?
Yeah.
No, if you weren't opening all your stores next to these guys, it does no longer make sense.
Yeah, there's no... Yeah.
So you're everywhere next to the guy.
Yeah.
You're not doing anything different. Then what are you actually adding value? And that's why you'll notice, for example, in ourselves, when we have set up in some place like Mirema, there's no other supermarket.
supermarket.
In fact, there are no matatu still now. In fact, I hope someone can just think quite through for someone to get a matatu to go in to connect up there. And the Gekambura, there was no supermarket. The Banana Road, there was no supermarket. Kirawa Road, no supermarket. Great Wall. And when you start looking at all these areas of actually where we are going and creating and starting to do things slightly different, even Karinde, there was no supermarket. And that now start making, that means if someone was to look at where can our expansion come next, they can actually say, hey, among the people I can actually think about investing is person X or person Y. Okay, it will be additionally. I will not be cannibalizing on my own 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But of course, you have to be assertive in the fact that when you're actually also doing your business, at times you'll have to collide next to another person because, and I'll give a good example. Everybody kept on asking why are there so many supermarket chains are along Mombasa Road, all the way when you start from Capital Center, Embakasi. There's Katani, before Katani, Syokimau, Great Wall, of one brand.
Yeah, of one brand.
And it was clear once the stores were actually maxing out, you could tell the customer service is actually deteriorating because of the capacity was not actually hitting and all that. And that's why there was the need of up another store here, up another store here, up another store. And still, when you look at the whole entire P&L, it's actually a growth bit and all that. So there's always that element of actually also asking yourself, how big is a market? Can I also up and add a supermarket? But now when you go, for example, the other day I was just passing by Thika Road, and I'm just looking at that area around the former Nakumat Mountain Mall.
Mountain Mall.
The one that was... there is a quick mart where formerly Uchumi was. There is a Naivas that has actually been there. Magunas has actually come in there. There's a Food Plus coming in there. There's a Carrefour on this other side.
True.
Before you actually start learning,
you have the two malls around there.
Some of the guys will struggle because there's nothing much. Now some of the guys you can no longer create such a big, but if you go other markets you'll notice well, even in one mall they can have 2 supermarkets, but too much of something at times also doesn't make sense.
So you still have to measure all that it's now no longer cannibalizing you.
Yes. And the place is growing. Kenyatta Road is growing. All the sides towards Roiro, it's actually growing. We have we have so many places. Nairobi is really growing, I have to say. So these places and other places to actually open rather than just opening next to that guy.
All right.
Sorry.
So you're now past 20 branches, 21 and counting and going on. And I know you have an end-year target of around 40, which I find quite surprising. I didn't know that you've grown to that size.
Yes.
Maybe they're thinking here about, some people might view it as aggressive. What perhaps the story behind, wanting to be in more places effectively,
So actually we have 18 trading sites, but we have opened 22. And this has been the journey. We have actually had to shut some of the stores. And even as we open, we have actually had to make that particular call because one of the key main element of us is actually saying we have to have every unit being profitable on its own. So one, if a store does not work, we shut it down. So we had a store in Kayole. So we had 2 in Kayole. One was performing very well, one was actually not picking and all that. You could tell the trajectory will pick, but maybe late. But as a startup, you don't have that time to start thinking and you're keeping on bleeding. So pick that store, take it somewhere else where you're 100% sure and also things. We had another store in Githurai during the last floods that were there in Nairobi. At midnight, you look at the CCTV and just think the floods and just picked up the whole bit and all that. We had another store in Gashie. Also, we also had to make a call because there you are, you're in Gashie. The store is not being profitable. There's a new mall coming up in a better place than where you are. As a businessman, you need to make those decisions that say, what do I do? And we tactically took that store and took it to Kirao. Which is even way much better. There's no actually store and also things. So all that agility, even as we open, we're actually being very clear that if a store does not work, shut it down. And this actually is something I'll advise anybody who is doing their business. And not even forget about branches now. Even if you were doing yogurts in your house and you're supplying your estate, and you have 4 SKUs and you clearly notice that the strawberry 250 is not working as well as the strawberry 500, but you still have to buy all these packagings and all that, and then you have vanilla working and the natural working. Kill this strawberry haraka.
So don't hesitate. No hesitation on.
Do not. This thing of holding on to things is.
Sometimes things are so dear to people.
It's my brand. What will people think? Oh,
am I giving up?
I look like I'm failing. No. No. The whole bigger picture is that. So, for example, right now we're opening up at like 4 more stores in Katani Road. We're opening up at Muthega. We're opening up a very beautiful store and actually hoping to invite almost everyone at Karibu Sana to Kasuku Center in Kilelesho. Those are and boldly. So we are opening up in Umoja in Roiro. So taking that bold as picture, but if at all any of these stores also
will not perform.
Does not hold on to it. You're not paying your own rent. You're not paying your own people electricity and everything. Why are you there? Make sure that
it has to make sense.
Yes.
At the end of the day,
I have my well-trained staff. We take the trained staff, take your trained goods, take your not trained goods, your well-purchased goods.
Your purchased goods, your inventory,
your assets. Transfer them somewhere else and just do you.
All right, that's an important point here. I think another question as we wind up, these I'm sure people would want to know, how do you avoid the pitfalls that have faced locally founded retailers? And case in point here, of course, you worked for one in Tuskys, and you also saw what happened to Nakumatt. I think whenever you grow, and I think this is not even much about hating or anything, it's just more of, you have to be, realistic. You still have to take care of things, it's, as much as economies of scale will pay off when you have 100, you don't need to, you still have to watch yourself in a sense. How do you avoid the same pitfalls that have been fallen? The history of the Kenyan supermarket, if I may put it, has been, it's very much Kenyan founded from the grass up. But you get to this point of the peak season where, the succession comes in place. These are, a lot of the retailers were started by, it's almost been multi-generation or passed on, but you get to a point either in the second or the third generation problems start. For Jaza, perhaps, how do you envision, making sure that this is sustainable? You create a brand, Kenyans resonate with the brand, Kenyans will come shop, you'll have the successful branches, but then again, you want it to be sustainable. You don't want it to be a gig of 2 years, and then again, it's a matter of administration and receivership and the likes.
So to put things in perspective, there's no school for retail in this country. But I can tell you have actually gone for a proper hard knock school by actually watching the rest and what exactly they've actually gone through. And also I'll also say I earned my PhD, not even MBA, at Uchumi. I actually learned at Uchumi, so what exactly not to do in retail. When you actually find all the way from systems to from spaces that you could not use, the whole thing of lack of retail know-how and upping and adding more professionals instead of actually sorting out the actual basic bare facts of how to actually grow a supermarket or something like that. There is that particular element that you have to learn, and biggest one, unit by unit profit and loss. For example, you'll notice when Westgate went down, had 15% of profitability and 10% of the sales. A big hit. They had already also lost another shop on Thika Road. Lost another shop. Those things actually affect. And then they had a long tail end of shops that were not profitable. What does that do to you? It starts holding on to your whatever. COVID comes in. People could not be able to pay their suppliers on time, and they had some crazy credit period. So suppliers refused all at once to actually pay and supply one particular brand. That's Tuskys collapsed. Again, working capital management. How are you doing your working capital management? And then the models, for example, at times you end up just working for the landlords by virtue of you've taken all these big spaces, 150,000 square foot. Yet the trading space that's giving you all the money is 30,000. So why do you need this other one 20,000?
Yeah.
And you're paying rent for it as equivalent as this other one. And so those models have changed. And if you can see, majority of the stores nowadays, they don't have upstairs. Supermarkets.
There's no longer more space upstairs.
If you see any store bigger than 50,000 square foot right now, you go like, this person, okay, who is this? It's a China squares of this one that now, because they're doing general. The rest of their supermarkets are actually now more leaner, even within the malls, more strip malls and all that. Then proper category management. I'll keep on giving a very good example of you've needed it, you got it.
Yeah.
It's a perfect thing. It was working quite well, and everybody keeps on saying nobody has ever seen a service as good as that. Nobody has ever kept goods as much as unsatisfied as Nakumatt. Fair enough, but the question is one. So you have vanilla scented candles, strawberry scented candles, and normal candles.
Yeah.
But this vanilla scented candles or something like that, it's only Joseph who buys them and buys them 2, 3. But he gets it. Or he actually has the shower curtains. They will actually get all the colors there that you want. You'll actually get it. But how many are buying what or not?
True.
So what you'll end up doing, this vanilla scented candle, by the time now the payment cycle is actually coming, you'll have sold 4, but you have to pay for the dozen. And this dozen that you're actually paying for to satisfy Joseph, then that means what? Paying it using your everyday Brookside or normal milk bread and another well, and then you start getting into all these problems. Start getting into actually things like importing items and all that. When you're importing items, that means you have to have items in production, items on transit, items in your warehouse, items in the back office, back room of your store, items on the shelf, and all that ecosystem must be supported by sales. That means our working capital is also held up and all such things. So and those are the things that we just have to say, hey, take your time. At times it's actually good to say your limit can actually be up to here. If someone wants the honey glazed turkey, please go to the specialty butchery that is actually there. They always have it. Or go to another I'm not going to keep it to actually make sure that, and then I'm going to pay for it from another place. That's some of the things. So many lessons that we have actually learned. So many lessons all the way from shrinkage. System have actually been upgraded. A lot of engagement. We also had Retrack actually coming in, and we did what you call the more like a universal way of work, code of conduct. The code of conduct of how between ourselves and suppliers. Suppliers have also evolved. Suppliers have also become brighter and smarter. They will not just give credit for just anything. And so there is definitely more analysis and understanding of business. So we've learned a lot. We have actually learned a lot.
And I know we could always seek another time. There's quite a lot to walk through, but I think to sum it up, the idea of running a business is always like the independence it gives you. You're your own boss effectively. You also can manage your time the way you want it. There's no fear about the likes of redundancies and the likes. You're running your show effectively. But I think one thing I've raised from the conversation we've had is quite a lot of things to watch out for. So I'm wondering what keeps you awake at night still. The idea of business is financial freedom. I'm my own boss. I don't have to worry. But there's quite a lot of things from the conversation we've had to look at. So ideally, as a business person, what do you feel keeps you awake at night?
It's a fallacy. The startup, by the way, you never forget some of those privileges you actually had in that mainstream shop where there was a legal department doing legal things, an ESG doing ESG things, a fresh department doing fresh things, the branches doing kanjo things, there's procurement doing, and then now ITI doing IT. Then comes in now when you're doing a startup and
you become all of it.
You start learning and relearning everything that you had actually forgotten how to even talk to
a customer who's
a customer is okay.
A customer is okay.
To kanjo. or now you're setting up and you have to start learning all the basics and of an IT system, all the way from controls and everything, and you have to redo all of them. So there's quite a lot of it. I think I'll actually say payback comes in way later, but nobody should lie to you that you're going to now get that.
Smooth sailing.
When I was in Naivas, I used to actually play golf a lot. I used to enjoy my golf. I can't remember right now. I've not been to the course like 3 weeks or something like that. Not. And anytime you actually, as in, you could not be able to get, you can't be able to get that particular time and space, because now you start worrying every day, is everything okay? At midnight you actually wake up, you remember the right story I told you, floods and all. It starts raining and you're like, I hope there's no call. The other day we were just I was having a very early morning flight, and how you just decide to look at the store, and guess what I just see? It was in Kekambura, and I can just see these are thugs breaking in.
That must be painful.
More than painful. You can do nothing apart from just call the cops and do that, and just now start wishing. And it is.
You still have to tend to your flight. You have to get moving.
You have to get this. You have to. You wonder, do I cancel? Do I don't do what? You have to get some comfort. So there are a lot of headaches as in young businesses. You have to work possibly harder. The only thing I can actually say, and even what you can actually call financial freedom, it comes way later. Because right at the moment when you're actually doing a startup, what you're doing now is eating into your savings.
True.
It's eating into your savings, looking at getting things just running, because everybody's just looking at you to make sure that you're paying your salaries, you're doing all those things, as in everything has to work. Everything has to work, and you have to make sure that one, I'm going to make sure I'm going to be that blue-eyed cheap boy that I'm going to teach the young generation or young Kenyans that Kenyans can make it in Kenya and can come up with some things and recreate and do. So so
effectively the buck stops with you once you're a business owner. The buck stops with you. You know, if I'm in accounting, I just have to make sure the books are right. I don't have to worry about something legal, someone else doing what.
Yes, you know how you go into board meetings and the finance guys say, it's commercial.
Yeah.
Then so commercial guy says, if even ourselves, the commercial guy also has some role in marketing, he has some role in admin. Because you expect people who you're also working with to have that startup mentality. That
is a startup. Is no
we are
longer
doing Kerawa. We have to do it within this particular time. And it might mean that we have to work up to around 1:30 a.m. And that issue is not working up to 1:30 a.m. We have to be back by 6:30. So to welcome our customers at 8.
True.
And you have to have people with that particular mindset that, yes, we have to work hard.
All right.
Yes.
Mr. Willy, thanks a lot for being on the podcast. I hope, I do feel quite the lessons in here, taking some of the lessons of starting a business.
Absolutely.
And we hope to, maybe at some other point have this conversation, catch up, find out how you're doing. I know you have a goal, to be right around the third of what the largest retailer, just from, the branch you started with in Buruburu. So we'll be watching that, and for sure, appreciate you being on the podcast this week.
Asante sana, and karibu sana to everyone to just visit our stores. Our prices are the same everywhere. The price in Karenen is a price in Pipeline. The price in Kirawa Kitusuru is a price in Kayole. The quality, we have a bit of more assortment in some of these other sites. You'll actually get your apple vinegar, for example, in Kitusuru. You won't get it in Pipeline. But you have all those bits. Please, karibu sana, and more. And we also open our Kileleshwa store.
Great. And that has been Mr. Willy Kimani, the founder of Jaza Retail, and he's offered his lessons running a successful business. And I do hope you've gotten to learn a few, one or two nuggets from that conversation. And this has been Make Money the Podcast by the Business Daily. My name is Kepha Muiruri, and catch you on the next one.